Back to the starting lineup with Scott Purrier, Ned Reynolds, and Art Haynes on your home for the St. Louis Cardinals. 102.1 The One.
And the streaking St. Louis Cardinals will be here tonight on the Sure Bet 102.1 when they play the Pirates again. These games start Central Time about 20 till 6, somewhere around there. Tomorrow's an afternoon game, but tonight they continue to play under the lights. And what's really an outstanding sports complex they have up in Pittsburgh. It's right there on the rivers and a very, very impressive sight.
Absolutely, yeah. And, of course, Arts Royals last night get a Bobby Witt Jr. 3-run homer in the 10th for the win. Yeah. Art, wanted to start with your thoughts, though, on the apparent movement that's going to happen, it sounds like, of the men's and women's basketball tournaments, March Madness, going to 76 teams next year.
Yeah, I don't like it. But, it certainly will create more opportunities for some teams. Now, you'd like to hope there's those mid-majors, but there are probably going to be more teams that are 6-10 and in a power conference. But that should eliminate some of the angst about who gets in and so on. But I'm not quite sure what the structure is, how they're going to accommodate for these teams.
What they're going to do, Art, the way I determine this thing is all of them will be involved in new playoff round games. In other words, they'll expand that by, I guess, a day or two, and certainly they'll have to expand the venues. Dayton, Ohio can't handle a number like that without having to go someplace else. But that's, I think, what they're going to do.
You'd go from your first 4 to your first 12 in that initial play-in, and which I'm wondering, do the first 4 teams get a share of NCAA tournament money by being in that first 4? So basically you're adding 8 more teams that are going to get a slice of the pie from the TV revenue, correct?
That would have to be correct, yes.
Yeah, and I'm sure that a lot of the schools will be like, well, I don't really like that. We need a bigger piece of that pie than letting other people have a share.
And what are you going to call it?
Yeah.
The pie is plenty big.
It is, but I mean, in these times where Arkansas is cutting tennis for $2.5 million in savings, that amount might save somebody's program. Which, by the way, I think it's up to about 25 schools now that have cut tennis out of their college program. Yeah,
St. Louis as well.
Yeah, it seems like it's the first one to go now for a lot of these schools. And we talked about it yesterday, but I wonder if the international flavor of the tennis makes it an easy target from the get-go.
I think so.
Yeah.
Missouri State got rid of men's tennis 25 years ago.
Has it been that long ago, Mike?
I think so.
Of course, they dropped, or Jim Giacchino had the Lady Bears tennis, dropped it, and then brought it back. Right. And they're still competing. Okay, if you call it the first 4 has a rhythm to it, and it's the same letters and so forth and so on. What do they call this? The terrific 12? I don't think so.
No, I don't know what you do with this. And again, so many things have to come out on logistically how they're going to do it too. But I guess you would start. I mean, you don't want to mess with the sacred start of Thursday of the actual field of what is now 64, which would become whatever, because that Thursday, Friday is almost a holiday now for people that plan vacation. I mean, I was out in Scottsdale, and I'd completely forgot about it. My wife's like, hey, it's a pool day. I'm like, okay, enjoy the pool. It's also the start of March Madness. I'll be in the sports book here watching all these TVs.
I bet she loved that, too.
Actually, she did like it because it gave us a little space there for about 4 or 5 hours after every minute together there. But hey, one other thing that I wanted to touch, get both your thoughts. This Texas Tech Brendan Sorsby gambling thing is taking on some new legs here because Cody Campbell, the basically the financier of Texas Tech athletics now, the billionaire that's paying for all these NIL guys, said yesterday that Cincinnati knew this was going on.
We mentioned that on the air. They were aware of this last year and let it go.
But they also said that because of that, Texas Tech may face sanctions for lack of institutional control for knowingly going after a kid that they knew was under investigation for this very thing. I don't think there's any way this kid can play college football ever again. Would you agree?
I think so, yeah.
Well, except has he been indicted along those lines? Have they actually proven that he has made the gambling?
Yeah.
I know he's being investigated for it.
Well, they have because, like you said yesterday, there's a paper trail with these gambling sites, where they can call DraftKings and say, hey, can we get your records for this phone number, for that? And the fact that the kid has checked into a rehab place is pretty much admitting that he has a problem.
And then I have to agree with Art completely. Then there's no way that he can play.
And that said, Art, it opens up the supplemental draft for the first time in a while, where he's available to NFL teams if that's the case in July, or I think it's August, maybe early August. And this is a kid that's probably, if he came out next year, would be in one of those top 2 or 3 quarterback prospects for the pros. So do you have any idea how that works in the NFL and what the order is for supplemental draft?
I think it's the same order as the draft. And, I saw a thing yesterday ranking the quarterbacks in the class of 26 this year, and I think he was number 4. On that list.
So, I mean, and as mediocre as this draft was, they're saying that next year is the draft in quite a while, and especially if you're looking for a quarterback. So, but I'm wondering now, so the Jets, they picked second. They took David Bailey from Texas Tech because they couldn't get Fernando Mendoza. and obviously, if it's the same order, the Raiders don't need another quarterback. Did the Jets kind of fall into Sorsby as their quarterback?
Assuming they've got the first pick next year?
Yeah. No, I mean in the supplemental.
Oh, the supplemental.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. They sure might.
And I'm looking here at a story on CBS Sports. It says, although Sorsby would likely qualify, there's no guarantee the NFL would approve him to enter, given the gambling allegations.
And therein lies the key, because you have your credibility factor that has to be addressed, obviously why you couldn't play in college, and the NFL feels the same way, although the NFL has loosened its grip a little bit by having a team in Vegas and by really promoting Las Vegas as a new sports capital.
Well, and they're in bed with FanDuel and DraftKings and everything like that, too.
VEASAN Network.
Yeah, and the NCAA keeps flip-flopping on what they want to make legal. Was it 2 years ago that they said, okay, these kids can now bet, they just can't bet on their own sport. Yeah. And now it's back to the way it was, where they can't bet on any sports that the NCAA has a competition in. So if there's an NCAA lacrosse, they couldn't bet on professional lacrosse games, for example.
How about fishing? Could they do that?
They could, because there's no NCAA fishing. So I don't know. Can you bet on fishing? I guess you could. Probably the big deal.
Bass, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So So it'll be interesting. But I mean, if they approve him, and I would think, and the other part of that too is the 5-year thing that they're proposing. Who's going to be the first one that hires a lawyer and says, wait a minute, you can't deny my client a 5th year if you're giving other kids a 5th year? Does that even see the light of day?
It'll probably go to court. I think that's probably going to happen. But, Art, how do you feel about what the NCAA has decided upon? 5 years without any red shirt and all. And hey, does it fit into the scheme of things?
Well, yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, I prefer the 4 years in a red shirt like we used to have, but the key element here is the one free transfer.
Correct.
Only.
Correct.
And that will promote much better fan identification and stability in rosters.
With the bad publicity, and it has been across the country, some negativity toward judicial rulings in this case. Do you think if this case does go to court somewhere along the line, and the 1-year rule comes under a judicial ruling, how do you think they would react this time, a second time around?
Well, if it's an act of Congress, then that's different, I think,
yes,
with the court.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, because if it's not, what's going to be any different than just hire an attorney for any injunction and say, well, my kid, my client played 4 years, he wants a 5th year because you gave it to those other kids. That's exactly the argument right there, and that's precisely why, at least in my opinion, there needs to be governmental control. Absolutely. Well, hey, let's take a timeout and let's talk some Crowder baseball on the other side of the break.
That's a good idea. We'll take a quick break here on the starting lineup. Don't go away. We have much more coming up.
You're listening to the starting lineup with Scott Purrier, Ned Reynolds, and Art Haynes on 102.1 The One.